Hey everybody, it is the Razzball Fantasy Football Podcast. I am Beat joined by the one and the only Rudy Gamble. How's it going over there, Rudy?
Going okay, man. Going okay. 2 weeks in the books. A
Yep,
few
and
more to go.
it's been like two very weird weeks. We're now entering week 3. It's not panic time yet, but maybe there's some stuff out there that's not quite gone as we planned.
Yeah. Evidently, offense is down except for the Saints, and they figured it out. Everyone else screwed it up. So yeah, it's a really weird year with. It seems like more teams are running. Not as many plays, not as much offense, and some real. We've got some breakouts and a lot of slow starts.
Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting, start to the season as we either wait people out or change their value as we're moving forward. Let's start by just jumping into it. We got a lot of things to discuss. We're gonna play a couple different games here with some breakouts and some disappointments. We're gonna start with the breakouts. We're gonna do a game from that I pulled from a baseball show that Gray loves because he doesn't. I don't think he still understands it yet. But Anchorman themed game, scientific fact, Sex Panther, or I don't believe you. Scientific fact, obviously, you believe the breakout is real and it's going to continue. Sex Panther, 60% of the time it works every time, so it's somewhere in the middle. And then, of course, I don't believe you. Sell them if you can at this point, or enjoy the ride while you can potentially too. But let's start at the top with some quarterbacks. Baker Mayfield, number one quarterback in fantasy, 36 of 49, 73.5% completion percentage, 474 yards, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception. He has 55 yards rushing on 8 attempts and a touchdown on the ground. Is this real? Is Baker, turned his corner finally at the age of what is he, 30 now? So 29. He'll turn 30 later this season.
Yeah.
Or next year. But what do you think?
I'd go Sex Panther on him. I think I was pretty bullish on him coming off of last year because he had a very good year last year. That offense just seemed to do quite well. Now they lost their OC. Is he the guy that was their OC? The guy that went to Carolina, or is it
I'm not positive on that one.
okay? But I don't know. It seems like the Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, that threesome. I was generally a fan of. So I know I got at least one Baker Mayfield. I was taking Godwin everywhere, and I know I was ahead of the consensus the first 2 weeks with him. So I think he will be a useful one. He's not going to run. I mean, the 55 yards. That's a little bit. He looked pretty good on that touchdown run, but you know, he won't kill you there. There's definitely, but yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he only has like 150 more yards the rest of the way. Um, but I have him as like QB 13 the rest of the way. I think which means like half of he's definitely going to be good on a bunch of matchups. Yeah, so I'm going Sex Panther 60% of the time.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm going as well. I mean, if the yardage was a little more impressive, I could get behind this a little bit more, but
Right.
it's largely based on the fact that he's got 6 touchdowns right now through 2 games, and that kind of touchdown rate, I don't know that I necessarily expect Baker to keep that up.
Uh,
So without the
right.
yardage to be like impressive, and I don't expect the rushing to continue at this rate. Like
Yeah.
basically, I believe that he can be useful, but I don't
Right.
think he's going to be, a top quarterback.
Yeah. The one other thing I would say on him is I really like the volume for passing because that team does not look like they want to run, team that wants to run probably wouldn't have Rashad White. You know, and it's good weather. So I feel like everything line that as long as Evans and Godwin stay healthy, um, I see him getting at least getting the volume, which is a better bet for the yards. And it doesn't unless Bucky Irvin breaks out. I don't see this as a team that's going to be great in the rushing red zone. So they might have to pass or Baker does have a few rushing touchdowns on his resume in the past. So we'll see. But yeah, so okay, Baker Mayfield Sex Panther. I did not have that on my bingo card to say.
All right, let's move on to the next quarterback, Derek Carr. You know, number 2 to number 4, depending on your touchdowns per per passing touchdown in your league. But he's 76.9% completion percentage, 30 of 39, 443 yards, 5 touchdowns. He's got 1 interception, 3 rushes for 14 yards, and a rushing touchdown. Where's Derek Carr falling on this list?
I mean, it was one thing with Baker, who was just in some bad situations and had a little. The Derek Carr thing really is the whole Saints thing has thrown me for a loop. I'm kind of in I don't believe you mode with Derek Carr. I can't believe that touchdown pass to Rashid Shaheed. That was insanely awesome. But I feel like the league's gonna figure this team out. I mean, like you're looking through that whole team. You're like, okay, Kamara's been around for a while, and he'll throw that 4 touch. He must lead the NFL in 4 touchdown games. I feel like he's had 4+ TDs a couple of times. I don't know. I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around this being a fantastic offense. I don't believe it yet.
Yeah, I mean, it was, 200 yards and then 243 yards. Again, the yards aren't really there. He has, 39 attempts, which is fine, but it's really just the
That's
touchdown efficiency. Like,
well,
that's been crazy
I mean, well, no, it's also been like insanely efficient. I mean, he has
everywhere.
39 attempts, 404. He's over 10 yards an attempt. I think he's over 11. I mean, this Derek Carr. This is, yeah, it feels like it's like The Hangover Part 4 or something. Like it's like the straight laced guy who takes no chances goes to New Orleans, and all of a sudden he's like he's like doing crazy voodoo and doing other things he shouldn't do. I don't know.
Those pull
Um,
boys unlocked something. He's just ready to go.
yeah. So it certainly is not making Pete Carmichael, the XOC there, who had basically was left over from Peyton days. He's not looking too good in this scenario. It was kind of like with Kellen Moore. It's like he keeps getting chances, and you're like, didn't Mike McCarthy fire him and take over, and the offense got better? Mike McCarthy, like how good was Kellen Moore? So yeah, I don't. We shall see. I mean, can't really blame someone for starting Derek Carr. Yeah, and maybe this streak continues. I also would suggest like maybe using a play as a deep safety and stop letting Shaheed get the deep touchdowns. It's as if they figured
That's
it out for every other deep threat except him and like maybe Tyreek.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to say that, but then Kamara being the weapon he is, he's always got the ball in his hand. So,
We'll see.
if you're not committing a linebacker to
Right.
him, you have to commit a safety, and then you find that one-on-one every now and then. And when Carr is, he's been around for a while. He can hit a wide open guy.
That was such an awesome play that it
He
was
was a great player.
it was like what's the phrase? If you're even, you're leaving. Because he threw that and Shaheed was even. And by the time he got that ball, he was like 2 or 3 steps. Yeah, no, that was one of the prettier deep pass plays I've seen in a while. Well, yeah. So we probably should. I'm looking at our list. We probably should just jump while we're on it and talk about Shaheed.
Yeah, let's
Um,
just talk about him while we're here. I mean, he's got 9 targets, 2 receptions, 169 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 rushes for 13 yards. And I know it sounds crazy to take like you read those stats, but at this point, how do you bench him when he's catching one of these each week? Like it's a tough spot to be in as a fantasy owner.
right. I mean, it's kind of like maybe like later career Deshaun Jackson like.
I mean, I feel like it's even prime Deshaun Jackson. I mean,
No,
he's
oh no,
getting
no.
targets. They're just
Well, no,
he's just not
but
coming down with them.
now, oh yeah, Deshaun Jackson, right? It's that we haven't really seen a wide receiver who's quite this much of a who puts this much out of deep passes. Like that's old school. And Deshaun Jackson's like the last guy I feel like that jumps out at me because he had a crazy yards per target for his career and ADOTs. But yeah, I mean, I think that that profile is just going to be more boom and bust. You're right, 9 targets ain't bad, especially because it's 9 out of 39. So that's 25%. Um, you know, if I would think that, that could easily correct to like run a 15-yard, and a hook. Like he's gonna be like you're gonna give him so much padding that he should be able to catch some underneath stuff. Um, so yeah, right now it's looking, this is the best case for Shaheed going in. Um, yeah, so yeah, I'm going with Sex Panther on that because I if I'm playing anything like half PPR or PPR, I'm thinking number one, number two, and number three thing for me is targets, and kind of and yeah, and I'm just not convinced Shahid's gonna may get even 4 or 5 targets a game. Um, but but we'll see.
Yeah,
So yeah,
I
that's
mean,
not
I
the
think if you can
profile I
move
like.
him, good. Sorry.
Totally. Yeah, no, I mean his profile screams best ball.
No,
Um,
absolutely.
and so like, you know, but yeah, so I'd go on Zexman though because I mean like he's legit fast. He's legit great at tracking deep balls, and those are 2 things that don't surprisingly don't often go together. Um, there's guys who are super fast that just aren't good at tracking a deep ball. So that creates a great floor. That feels like there's like a few more where that came from. That's a few games.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna have to take some bad weeks where he just doesn't catch that bomb, or he catches 1 for 15. But
Yep.
for that upside in a flex spot or a flex 2, especially wide receiver 3, if that's where you took your weakness in your lineup,
Yeah.
you could do worse than a guy like that can put up 15 points in a hurry.
Yeah. And I mean, best rhyming wide receiver since Ahmad Rashad. I don't remember if there was another guy. So I'm gonna go with that.
Yeah, I mean, Justin Jefferson isn't quite rhyming, but it's along that
That's
line.
called alliterative. That's alliteration, but it's not rhyming. Um,
Like Eminem could make it rhyme if we needed to. I mean, he could do it.
I think he could. Um,
Let's
but
move on to Baltimore, or sorry, not Baltimore, but Baltimore 2.0, which is the Chargers. J.K. Dobbins, he's either number 3 or number 4 running back based on your scoring. He's got 27 carries, 266 yards, 2 touchdowns, 4 receptions for 4 yards. He's got 130 plus yards in each game with a touchdown in each game as well. Is this real? Has he climbed running back ranks and needs to be taken, seriously as a top running back, or what are your thoughts here?
I mean, I had marked this year as just complete no go because of the coming off the Achilles, and no one's done this before. But no one's also run for 260 yards in the first 2 games. And the thing about coming back from the Achilles, and I don't know this, so I'm a I'm not a doctor, and I'm like not even an internet doctor. So I'm playing an internet doctor on this. To me, the concern's not like re-injury, like it would be like a hamstring, like a soft tissue thing. It's that like your athleticism's not there. I mean, the first game, I mean, he's done it 2 games in a row. I I'd still want to sell high versus buy, but I think that might be my MO with every running back who isn't Derrick Henry, who isn't getting a lot of targets. And I don't, yeah, we haven't seen that. Um, it is weird because I mean, we do know Herbert threw, yeah, at least when Eckler was there, he caught a lot of balls. Maybe not as much with Herbert as predecessors, but it doesn't seem like Dobbins is taking that part yet. And he hadn't shown that in Baltimore, but Baltimore's a really bad scenario. So um, I would have said I would definitely have said I don't believe you last week. I'm somewhere there. I'm I'm trying to keep an open mind.
So maybe it's like 40% of the time it works every time. It's not
It's
quite 60%.
yeah, yeah. I mean, like it's kind of like more like a cuddle panther right now.
It kind of feels like since we just talked about Shaheed, it kind of feels like the running back version of Shaheed. I mean, 27 carries isn't nothing, but it's not a really high number either.
Yeah,
He's just breaking off huge runs. He's got a almost 10 yards per carry average. Like that's unsustainable. So
right.
to that extent, we're just talking about big plays. Like that's what you're expecting. And I agree, that's kind of what you don't really see from guys with Achilles. I mean, maybe it helped that he was younger when it happened. You know, he had a lot more time to recover than somebody who's 26 when it happens, which is pretty much the downside of a running back's career, anyways.
Could
As
be.
NFL teams start to think, and just, I mean, the numbers kind of bear that out. So, you know, if it happens then, you're pretty much done, regardless of what injury it is, if you miss a season. But it was early enough in his career. Maybe he has, you know, had time to recover, and he's back. I always liked him as a running back. He's always had injury problems, even pre Achilles. So I still don't know
Right.
that I trust him to stay healthy.
Agreed. So yeah. Yeah. We agree.
Yeah,
I
I'm
think
gonna go Sex Panther, but it wouldn't take much for me to move him if somebody's buying him as a, you know, an RB1 at this point.
right.
Let's move over to Quentin Johnston on the same team. 11 targets, 8 receptions, 89 yards, 2 touchdowns. He leads the Chargers in yards, touchdowns, receptions. He's tied with targets with Ladd. We don't know, or we didn't know who was going to be the one coming into the season. Is this enough to say it is Quentin Johnston? Is he now worth starting every week, or where are you at on QJ?
I mean, there was a lot of dunking on this guy going into the year. Um, I didn't. I mean, it was a really bad rookie year. Um, I mean, I, I'm not. I'm not sold on this offense, especially the passing game. I mean, we've seen Corbett with better wide receiving groups and not put together anything great. And we know Harbaugh is not necessarily a huge fan of the passing. Um, so yes, I don't think McConkey or Johnston will end up being like a top 40 wide receiver this year. So yeah, I mean, it, if Johnson's your fifth is in your top 5 best wide receivers, you start him in a flex. But yeah, I think I'm more toward I don't believe you. Not that he can't be decent. It's just that the bar for a wide receiver to me is like, okay, is this guy going to finish in the top 40 to top? Yeah, and everyone else is just kind of a stream. Like in a tough matchup, I don't like him. And it's like but there's a whole bunch of guys that it's like, oh yeah, I'll plug them in and stream them. What's your take on there? I haven't seen any of the games. I mean, his ADOT doesn't look awful. I thought maybe they were forcing him the ball, but I think his ADOT's like 10 yards or so. That's not bad.
No, I mean, really, what I would say is I didn't think he looked bad last year as a wide receiver. It's just he had the drops, and just once people started saying it about him constantly, he couldn't
Yeah.
get out of that, and he just kept dropping. And so I assume when that happens, you work really hard in the offseason not to have that same situation and not to hear those same the same argument over year. And we've seen it with other guys that have gotten better, with their hands as they've played more at the pro level. They take it a little more seriously. So I think, I actually think he's probably a top 40 receiver. He's probably squeezing in like just into the top 40 for me right now. But I think he is the Chargers one. I think he's much more talented just from a athletic standpoint than Ladd. I think Ladd's better just, fundamentals type of guy, but there's a reason he was a first round pick. That like he has crazy measurables that could make him somebody that could pop this year if that offense gets it together.
Right. And I mean,
Or if the offense just doesn't break huge runs every game and take the offense away from, passing game.
Right. And they have, the other weird thing is I'm looking at the rest of the season stuff and I'm realizing, I was probably a little stingy on him for snaps. Because they have a whole bunch of guys that aren't of much import. Guys like Fahoko and Davis, I think are not really threats. They have DJ Chark who comes back maybe mid-year. Yeah, but the reality is Chark's just a deep threat.
And maybe he comes back. That's still a maybe with DJ.
Yeah. So it's weird, but the fact they're using Quentin Johnston is really kind of in the short to intermediate game, and that's McConkey's game too. Yeah, we'll see. Also, I'm looking at the snap percentages. I don't think any of them are above 70%, even now with just the 3 wide receivers. So yeah,
Quinn was the only one over 50% even.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's so we'll see. I think it's also worth noting. Las Vegas and Carolina are not maybe the best teams. So who do they have this week? At Pitt. Okay. I think that we'll see if he could just put together a top 40 week at Pitt. I think that would help sway me. I'm not picturing. I think that'll be an interesting test for the Chargers to go from home with Vegas at Carolina to then have to play Pitt, and then they play KC at home, and then at Denver. This is not a great stretch.
No, it's not. So we're gonna learn. We're gonna learn real quick whether these two are real or not.
You got Saints in Cleveland coming up week 8, week 9. Yeah, I would that would just the matchups gives me pause. They might have to. They're probably gonna have to pass to win, but we'll see. Okay, who we got next?
So we're moving on to Detroit, where Jameson Williams has 20 targets, 10 receptions, 200 yards after only 354 yards last year in 12 games. He's got a touchdown, two rushes for 28 yards. For the Lions offense, I'm sure everybody imagined that Jameson would lead them in yards and Montgomery would lead them on rushing yards. What are your thoughts on Jameson Williams here? Is this the breakout we thought could happen from the time he got drafted and saw the measurables and just needed to get his head on straight? Or is this just him kind of taking advantage of single coverage and maybe the number 2 or number 3 corner on him as well?
I mean, this from a talent side, I mean, this offense is, well, unlike having Jameson Williams show up, and I mean, he was really good in college, really fast. I mean, I don't know what you do. Like, you can't. I mean, you've got 2 very good wide receivers. Could be great, both. Laporta balled out last year. You've got good receiving threats out of the backfield. Yeah, I do think he's probably benefited. But so he's not gonna. I mean, he's not gonna have 20 targets. I mean, last week's 11 targets, you have to put an asterisk on because they had an insane amount of 55 throws or something. I mean, he only had a 22% share with 11 targets. So I do feel like things are going to switch up a little bit for this team. I think they're going to correct and move to the running the ball a bit more, have more balance. I feel like the Jameson Williams thing, the number one thing getting out of it is that I don't think Amon St. Brown. I think I don't see how he or Laporta deliver on ADP. That the whole point, their ADPs were predicated that Jameson Williams was pretty much like gonna be an average to below average set WR2, and now he's looking like, I don't know, like a Jalen Waddle. He's looking like a 1B.
Yeah.
That there's no, and that team shouldn't be passing like they have. I mean, they have a very good offense, but I don't see why with that team you not running the ball more. So, and that, we'll see how the game scripts go. I'm taking a look at their schedule coming up. I'm having trouble figuring out their schedule. There we go. Kind of bounces around. I don't know, that it's an odd thing. I can't imagine Dan Campbell's happy about that pass rush split from this last game. So I'd guess I'm going with I'm buying on Jameson Williams. Not maintaining this by any means, but I think being a solid bet for like a top, say, and put him now top 30, I'd feel like. So that's playable, and that definitely is above ADP expectations on him.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's going to beat ADP pretty easily. I think the question is like, how high does that move him? I think for me, he's probably into wide receiver 2 territory pretty easily. I think, and Amon-Ra stays obviously a wide receiver 1, but he might fall to the back end of that group now. Although there's been several wide receiver 1s not performing that we'll talk about here in just a second.
Right.
Let's move over to Indianapolis, where we got Alec Pierce. Yes, we talked about him a little bit last week, so we won't spend too much time here, but 10 targets, 8 receptions, 181 yards, 2 touchdowns. Next on the team in passing or receiving yards is Ashton Doolin with 67. Pittman has 15 targets for 7 receptions and 52 yards. We'll talk about him in just a little bit, or we might as well talk about him now. But What are your thoughts about the Indianapolis passing game?
I mean, well, I think I didn't see the box score, or I didn't really study it, but it did seem like whoever they played basically came to the same conclusion that I and anyone with half a football brain did after week one. It's like you're just make Anthony Richardson throw short intermediate throws, make him beat you there. Kind of I'm trying to think. Tyrod Taylor might be a good example of that. That the guy had two skills. He could throw a pretty deep ball, and he could run. And but if you can't make people pay in the short and intermediate game, you're really easy to scout for, and you become a backup. And so I think that's still the outstanding question for Richardson. Um, the Alec Pierce thing. I mean, we know he had that great first game. I didn't see what he did. Did he have a good game last? Yeah, I mean, 7 targets, 550. I mean, it was a really good floor game, you'd say. He didn't have that crazy deep throw. His yards per target
Mhm.
went from 41 to 8. So so you know, he, I- he's had a really, um, but his ADOT was 40 yards in week 1, and now it's at 15 it went down to 15 for week 2. I'll be honest, I don't believe in this passing game for this team because, like I said, I think it's one dimensional. And I still think Josh Downs does something this year. He's missed both weeks. You've got Pittman. You used a high pick on Adonai Mitchell. Um, I'm I'm not buying the Alex Pierce thing. I do think we are seeing a little bit of chemistry with him and Richardson, but I don't see him being a factor. I think it's gonna be real tough for any of these guys in Indianapolis. And yeah, and it does add the question mark. The same thing with Amon St. Brown. I mean, Amon Ross St. Brown. It's the same issue is with Pittman right now. It's like, ooh, the whole thing was that you're going to get a ton of targets and be solid with them. Right now, I guess the targets have been there, but not the but it's been so bad that so this concern that like no wide receiver is quarterback proof, and it could
Yeah,
just be
man,
that
not
this is
many.
Tyreek's gonna definitely have to. If anyone you'd think would be Tyreek, and we'll see how he does with whoever they got starting in Miami.
Yeah, I think
Uh,
it's Skylar Thompson. So at
yeah,
least for this week, we'll see if they make any signings or any moves.
yeah,
Let's move over to Las Vegas where Brock Bowers, the popular tight end rookie, has 17 targets, 15 receptions, 156 yards, no touchdowns yet. What are your thoughts on Brock Bowers? Are you willing to, start him every week? Where are you at
yeah,
on him?
yeah. I had been a skeptic on rookie tight ends, and I think last year just broke that for me. Because I think it's really hard to be a two-way, like a pure tight end who's also has a big role in the blocking game. But I think we saw with like Laporta. I don't know. Was McBride a rookie last year, or was he maybe like?
No.
But he didn't have a lot of experience, and he kind of had been hurt the year before or didn't play much. Um, Basically, the league seems fine in letting some of these tight ends just early on focus on receiving, and they can figure out blocking later, and put him in position to succeed. Bowers was the best tight end to come out of college in a long time. Pitt's got the hype, but like Bowers crushed it on the field constantly. That on the so no reason to question on Bowers, and I think and Minshew Minshew's good enough for Bowers to do well. I think if you get down to AOC, I'd be a little more worried. But Bowers is good. Yeah, I'm buying that.
All right, so you're going scientific fact. I think I'm going. I think he's pretty much in line with where I had him preseason. So I'll go scientific fact for where he is. But I think he's like the number 6, number 7 tight end, and that's going to be good. I think he's going to be in the group that's worth owning, but I think that's about as deep as it goes.
And it should be noted. And I mean, I don't know how many are on your list, but if he's a top 6 tight end, I don't know. There's a lot of the guys that we had penciled in for top 6 are not doing well.
Right? They've been really bad.
So yeah, like I said, I think that I would not be shocked if Bowers ends up being TE1 this year, the way things are going. I mean, that's not the odds he will.
Yeah,
but
I think 1 might be a little bit out of reach for me, just because he's not going to get. He doesn't play every down. Like, he's not that guy. They spent a high draft pick on tight end last year too, so they're using their tight ends in a little bit of a split situation. So I think just playing time is potentially an issue.
Yeah, and you've got he's got to share it with Adams in terms of the passing game, but wow,
and it's not exactly Patrick Mahomes back there throwing.
I mean, right? It is. I will note his ADOT is not inspiring. It was 5 yards the first game, 6 yards the second game. So that looks really good for PPR. But it would suggest his yards per target is going to be very hard to keep up where he is now. But interesting.
Yeah, it feels very PPR friendly, but I don't know how friendly it'll be for zero PPRs.
Right.
That might be a little tough.
Yeah.
All right, let's move over to disappointments. We'll try and move through these a little bit faster. Panic at the disappointments. Do you have high hopes? You take a new perspective, or is it over and time to say amen? Jamar Chase, 11 targets, 10 receptions, 97 yards, no touchdowns. It's hurt. It's hurt a lot.
I still have high hopes. I think Burrow, there was I had the expectation it could be a slow start for him because of the surgery. Not having Higgins, I don't know if that matters with Chase. I still have high hopes. But it is feeling a bit more that I don't know, maybe the ceiling's not as high on Chase as we thought.
I'm perfectly fine with Chase still. I know it's not been great, and the Bengals offense hasn't quite clicked yet, but they've also had a little bit of a tough start there to the season. As you mentioned, that was maybe expected. So I think better days are to come. I wouldn't sell him for 80 cents on the dollar.
Right.
If you can get a draft day price and you'll move him, okay. If you want to move him for somebody that's in that elite class, then I have no problem with it. But I would be taking, wide receiver 3s for Jamar Chase. Just if you're losing, your best chance is Jamar Chase becoming Jamar Chase rather than betting on something else. Let's move over to Garrett Wilson. He has 17 targets, 10 receptions, 117 yards, no touchdowns. Targets are there. That's what we always want, but there has been much outside of those targets.
Yeah, I still have high hopes. He's he's got a good quarterback, and he's in a really good situation in terms of there's not a lot of competition on that field. He's been getting the targets. I think they had to start with 2 road games. Yeah, so I think I have high hopes that he'll be at least like a top 20 wide receiver. It's just, I mean, like part of it is hard to know because he's never had a real quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, there's an argument to say he still doesn't really have a real quarterback. I mean, they haven't cracked the 200
Conspiracy
yard.
theorist.
They haven't cracked the 200-yard mark this season yet
That's what they
as a
don't.
team
That's what they
passing.
want you to think.
They get New England,
Big
Denver,
stats.
Minnesota, Buffalo, Pittsburgh, New England, Houston, Arizona, Indianapolis as their next set of games. I don't know that there's a game in there that I'm like, oh yeah, I'm ready.
Yeah.
That's gonna be a good one. That's gonna be easy. Maybe Minnesota.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, yeah, there's stuff I like about it, but yeah. So I guess nothing's changed there for me. But I can't say he was a guy that I really, really wanted just because he plays for the Jets. We know what
I mean,
happened.
I love him. I think he's an amazing talent, but I
Right.
also didn't rank him where I would have had to rank him to draft him as much as some other people did. So I think there's better days to come. I have high hopes, but I'm not sure that it's going to be where other people had him. I think it's more in the back end wide receiver one territory.
Right.
Brandon Ayuk, he has 10 targets, 6 receptions, 71 yards. Obviously, he had the whole situation with his contract and not being happy. He should be very happy, and he's still not producing.
Yeah, and now we've got not only is McCaffrey out, but McCaffrey and Debo are out for the next couple of weeks. So that sets himself up in like, it should be him and Kittle getting a ton of targets. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if he was on a different team, I think there was always the question of how much of it is he's great and how much of it is he's doing great because this system is so great for wide receiver efficiency. The fact he's still in the system makes me kind of betting on it for kind of higher hopes and thinking that he did play 87% of snaps. So kid gloves are off. He only played 60% the first game. I have him at like 90% for game week 3. I think I think he's gonna have at least one huge game in the next couple. But gotta like the floor. I mean, if he doesn't put up decent numbers, San Francisco is gonna be in big trouble. I mean, the other wide receiver, it's gonna be Jennings now having to be WR2 and Chris Conley or Bell. I mean, yeah. So no.
Yeah,
So I still have hopes.
Yeah, it's not pretty, but I would say the one good thing is we've seen with Ayuk when Debo's out, he actually tends to do pretty well. The game plan tends to involve him more than when Debo's in there. So I think there's better things to come. But I think the San Francisco offense as a whole, while it's without Debo is one thing, without CMC, Jordan Mason has done a great job in his stead, but it's still not what Christian McCaffrey brings just as a threat, what he can do, where he can be on the field. So it's a little bit of a new perspective because I don't know the offense is what it normally is until they kind of get CMC back.
Yeah. No,
All right. Nope. Go ahead.
Nope.
All right.
You're up.
I was going to say, let's move over to New Orleans where Chris Olave has been very disappointing. 8 targets, 6 receptions, 92 yards, no touchdowns, 1 rush for 7 yards. I mean, the Saints have been as good as we could expect the Saints to be, and Olave has not produced. That's not what I would have told or expected if you told me that they were, doing what they've been doing through the first couple of weeks.
Right. Yeah, being great on the run, great on deep pass was not in the cards. I mean, I'd say the challenge I would have had with Olave coming in is that I think he's going to be efficient when throwing the ball. He's not going to get a. I still don't see him being a good bet for touchdowns. So you kind of need him to be getting a really good target share. I think it'll be good. I mean, I guess I was just he seemed like a guy that always gets drafted higher than I kind of see it, and I think and it could be just how bearish I am on touchdown potential. But I mean, I still believe in the talent. Like I think it was more that like a lot. Let's see. So in his 2 years, he's been WR25, WR16, with generally good health. Yeah, I mean, I think he could still be WR25 for PPR. So I guess maybe I don't know if that's perspective or high hopes. Because still believe in the talent. It's not a great situation though if Shaheed's getting that much targets. It could be though that we also haven't had a game script where they have to pass, and Carr throws 40 times, and in those cases, so better days are ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I would say if you told an Olave owner that he's getting wide receiver 25, that would be pretty disappointing based on where he was drafted.
Right.
I had him wide receiver 9. I haven't
Mm.
done re-rankings for this week. I think I'd probably sit him somewhere in the mid to high teens.
Yeah, I've got him at
Still,
30.
yeah.
I
See,
just
I think I'm higher on him than that, but I get it. Like there's more threats in that passing game than we thought. It seemed like it was just going to be just feeding Olave constantly and just letting him do his thing. But Shaheed's been good. Um, you know, that's pretty much been it. And then Alvin Kamara has been amazing.
right.
But I do think, with that said, I don't think as we move forward, Olave is going to continue to put up this small of
No.
production. But I am taking a little bit of new perspective, and then I don't have him in my top 10
All right.
anymore.
Yeah, we will. Right. And I think the other thing is that I think that Saint offense kind of was known for having like one wide receiver kind of really got a lot of catches. The Michael Thomas rolls, the kind of
Mhm.
I forget if that's they call it if that's the X or what, but new OC, things could change up, but so I do think there is the chance that Olave could still be same skill potential and just not get that same target share that he got because of scheme changes.
Yeah.
So so I'm more perspective, I guess, versus the consensus. You're more you're a little higher hoped.
Yeah, I think so. Let's move over to Terry McLaurin. He's got 12 targets, 8 receptions, 39 yards, no touchdowns. I mean, we're getting into some bad numbers here with the next few receivers. What are your thoughts on Terry McLaurin?
Yeah, I mean it's been I think in one way you could look at his stat lines over the last 4 years. He's been very, very consistent. 70, generally around 80 receptions for a little over 1,000 yards. Never big on touchdowns, but I mean that offense has had its issues. Um, but I kind of maybe I look at it more as like it was hard to see a ceiling, and me, I'd say like at best I'm kind of perspective on it. I don't know what to expect from this offense going forward with Jordan Daniels. Um, I think in general we've seen that team run more than they had in the past. Part of that is the Daniels skill set. Um, I, but I don't, like I would have said I don't see McLaurin just prospering deep down the field, and I feel like that's the one skill set of Jordan Daniels I feel most confident on in the pros. So I mean, I've got him right now very similar to Olave, like a around 20, around 30. So I don't know what that would be considered. Best thing for him is that there's really no other wide receiver who's even like a true starter on that team. You've got McCaffrey and Brown are kind of like Diami Brown, not Noah Brown, are just kind of rotation guys. So yeah, I don't think I really want a piece of this passing offense this year.
Yeah, I think that's fair though, because it's not been. I mean, it's not going to be a high volume passing offense unless they really get behind, which could happen. But at the same time, like that's just not going to be the way that they want to play. So I could definitely see this being an issue just for the sheer volume of passing that's available. Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest issue. I really don't think there's anybody else to pass to. So from that perspective, he's safe, but just not enough yards to really do much. I have a problem dropping him because he's been around a lot of bad quarterbacks and gotten the yardage, but I think you're sitting him down until we see that start to happen. Let's move on to Christian Kirk, who has 7 targets, 2 receptions, 29 yards, no touchdowns. He's 4th on his team in yards at 29. This was not what we expected from Christian Kirk. We thought, if anything, he was going to get mass volume. Again, just who else is there that would get the receptions? And it hasn't been him.
This has been such an awful offense. They've looked like a bunch of Jags. I don't like it's kind of mystifying that Trevor Lawrence has been so blah when he did seem to be the generational talent. I still don't know what's wrong with him. Like it's not like it's kind of like Herbert, where you're just like, this seems like every franchise would love to have gotten this this quarterback, and then it just seems like it never goes to the next level, particularly with Lawrence. With Kirk, I mean, like, yeah, this I don't love. Like, I guess I don't know enough with Brian Thomas what he's going to be. We know what Gabe Davis is, which is a guy who's not going to get a high target rate. And I thought Brian Thomas might be a little similar, and thus, I'm with you. I thought Kirk would do better. I feel like I can't imagine how this offense could not turn it around at some point. And maybe, so maybe like a mild up thing, but I wouldn't be opposed to giving up on Kirk. I have him. I don't have him that far off from Olave and McLaurin, but I'll admit I feel like he has a worse floor than those guys. I mean, I feel that I'm not saying that with really any doubts. I think anyone just he does. And yeah, Kirk's just one of those guys that feels like it's hard to put your faith in. Like he's just so. There's just nothing on this offense. I'm really, like, yeah, Kirk was a weird. I've had him on teams, and it feels like there's always like a fluke play. Like whenever he'd have a good week, it still seems so dependent on a weird fluke play. It does not feel like a firm floor, which is what I'd like in a guy who's a non-flex wide receiver.
Yeah, like the talent level on Olave and McLaren seems a lot higher than with Kirk, where Kirk seems like he's more than just a guy, but he's not a whole lot more than that. Can't really like they're propping the whole passing offense up on him right now, and he's not that good. Like he can't just take double coverage on. Getting Evan Ingram back hopefully this week will help, But even then, I don't know that it's enough to really free up Kirk. I think that's another one where you just got to sit him. If you have him and hope that things turn around, if you can move him, I'd go ahead and move him because I don't think it's going to be a whole lot better.
Yeah.
Speaking of not a whole lot better, DeAndre Hopkins, how the mighty have fallen. He has 3 targets, 2 receptions, 17 yards. Is he droppable?
It's not looking good. And Levis looks like a clown act right now. Yeah, I mean, I know it was. I'd probably be fine dropping him. Right now, I've got him more as like WR40. But feeling like the last year he was really DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, we're a number of years away. I mean, he's had injuries, but that's part of the fall from grace that inevitably happens, that you're not 100% healthy. I'm trying to find his season log. I mean, last year he was. I mean, last year he had the health. It was fine. Like, I mean, it looks like 75, 10, 57 sounds good. We played all 17 games, 7.8 yards per target. Nothing really remarkable there. And then they added Ridley. So yeah, I feel like last year was kind of like best case for bounce back. I just don't like this team, this passing offense. So yeah, you're looking at a god awful floor.
Yeah, I think if you have D Hop, the only thing that is maybe preventing you from just cutting him outright is the fact that he could get traded because he's in the last year of his contract. I'm sure he doesn't want to go out if this is his last year or however that works. I don't think he wants to really ride it out with the Titans and how bad that they are looking right now. Will Levis is certainly not the answer, but they also don't really have the answer behind him either. I mean, it's Mason Rudolph behind him. We know he's not the answer either. So it's all bad regardless of the passing game. Maybe you can start Ridley. I know he had a decent week this week, but even that, I don't feel good about starting even Ridley in this offense.
No, I mean, last year it felt like it when Levis came in. There's at least some fun to it. It's just looking like a bit of a mess right now.
Yeah, I mean, he's made 2 plays in 2 weeks that are just baffling and cost the team the game. So
yeah,
let's move on to the Bears.
That's the PG version of what the coach said.
Yes, that is very toned down. The Bears as a whole are just awful. They are the only team under 200 yards passing. The Titans, Chargers, Pats, Steelers, Panthers are all under 300 still. The Panthers are the only team that has less total yards at 352 to 353 for the Bears. Every other team, by the way, is over 500 total yards of offense. So the Bears and Panthers have really just been sucking it up. Really thought Caleb Smith would breathe a little bit of fresh air into this offense. It looks as stale as ever. DeAndre Swift, DJ Moore, Caleb Williams, Keenan Allen, Rowan Dunze, Cole Kmet, all of them were drafted in every league. How many of them still need to be started? I don't think you're necessarily dropping them, mainly because Caleb is a rookie and maybe he figures it out at some point. But can you start any of them?
I mean, I feel like you have to start Swift and Moore. I mean, Keenan Allen, I'd probably want to have him have a good game before I take him off the bench. I mean, I like Odunze from a talent perspective. Yeah, there's just a dysfunction in that passing game, and DJ Moore has proven he's used to the dysfunction. So he'd be the one guy I'd ride on it, but yeah, I mean, I think it. I mean, the Bears. It's not a good. The Bears don't seem to have a great O line, and all that dancing by Caleb Williams. I don't think it's tough when watching him in college, particularly at USC. Yeah, I mean, like it could very well be that like all that improvisation stuff is not a good, does not portend well for the pros. Because yeah, it makes it real tough to block for. The talent level is just different, obviously. So I don't think Shane Waldron, the OC, is necessarily going to be the guy that's going to solve it this year. I'd still bet long term on him, but I think I would say I don't think Caleb Williams' ascension to a top 10 quarterback is coordinator proof. He might. He's going to need he needs more than just surrounding him with talent. They probably would have been better off instead of drafting a Dunze, drafting a tackle. But
drafting anything for O-line would have been great. They definitely need to fix that, and calling them not good is maybe not even close enough because they're awful. I actually think Caleb's running around is the only thing keeping the Bears kind of in, because he's made the offensive line 5-6 sacks better than they would be because of what he's been getting out of. I understand where you're coming from, but
yeah,
he's running for his life. I mean, it's
but the best
the same problem that Fields was having the whole time too.
It could be. I don't know. I mean, it's tough to say. I mean, but the best thing you could do for an O line that's struggling is throw the ball quick, and that's real tough for a rookie quarterback. That's a lot on the coordinator and scheming it up and having clear priorities of who you're supposed to do in the passing game, and it might take Williams a little bit of time there. That might not be his greatest strength. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine sitting down. I mean, I think I'm fine sitting down everybody in this offense until further notice. I mean, nobody is produced.
Yeah. It does feel like after 2 weeks like that you sit and you go like, you know what? Let's run the ball a lot.
I think that's what they would love to do, but they just can't do that either because the offensive line gets no push. I'm not even putting on DeAndre Swift, who isn't the perfect running back, but I mean, it's not his fault either. There's no push running or receiving right now.
Free my man Rashawn Johnson. Free him.
It is not. He is not going to help. He's not even getting up to speed. By the time
all he's gotten is a punch.
Yeah, so I just don't see that helping either. We need to address the O-line, and until that happens, I don't see the Bears really improving. Rachaad White has 25 carries, 49 yards, 7 receptions for 7 yards. He's been outrushed by Baker so far this season. He does have a 71% snap count. Bucky Irving has 16 carries, 84 yards, 3 receptions for 14 yards. Bucky's been, more efficient. Rashaad's still getting the work. I mean, as good as Baker's been, as many scores as they've had, the running backs haven't gotten any of them.
Yeah, no, it's. I mean, I think Rachaad White's his volume last year was very surprising, and his efficiency was not. So going into the year, it did. I mean, the only situation that was comparable in my eyes was like the Giants, where you're like, you're really going to go with Singletary and a bunch of unproven players, that just seems really odd. And like a non first 2-day running back. And yeah, so that's why part of the reason I was so bullish on the passing game was that there's no way this team's gonna be like it just screamed like a team that's going to be top 5, top 8 or so in neutral pass rate. Yeah, I know I drafted Bucky Irving at least Fishbowl or Razzball. So yeah, I see this turning more into a share. I personally see it like moving Rashad White more to like a third down back. That coming out of college, that's what I thought was his thing. I was very surprised that he became like more of this 3 down back. So I could see this being a bit more 50-50 with White maybe getting more third down passing. We'll see. But yeah, I can't imagine 70% snap counts.
Yeah, I mean, I still thought he was going to get it because I didn't think Bucky Irving was really going to push him. I mean, he looked so good last year, even with the amount of touches that they gave him. He still produced with them. I just thought that would be the way they'd go about it again. Why fix it if it's not broken? He said 70% snap counts in the first 2 games, so I'm not going to say he's not going to do that just yet. But he does need to put some production out there. I'm not giving up. It's kind of in the Terry McLaurin mold where, I think the touches and the fact that I don't really trust anybody else around him, I'm hanging on and hoping for the best. And I'm even willing to start them if you're just looking at your team and like that's your best option. But I don't feel good about it.
No, and just to underscore on the efficiency, I mean he's run for 3.7 and 3.6 rushing. Yeah, his first 2 years. This is not a guy that you need. Given him 272 rushes last year was insane. Now his yards per target last year 7.8 on 70 targets. 7.8 is very good for a running back. Yeah, I just like I said, I think so. I think they just got to give Irving. Irving could run for 3.6. Why does it got to be Rashad? Like no one's respecting that run anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's just so you have the option of putting Rashad out there and having him go receive. And I'm assuming neither is really a good blocking, but I'm assuming he has the blocking scheme down a little bit better just by having been there longer.
Nah, well, yeah. I mean, all they have to do is just get down on their knees, and then that'll give Baker Mayfield like a better vantage point to throw it.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on here. Let's move over to Najee Harris, where he has 37 carries, 139 yards, no touchdowns, 2 receptions, 14 yards. He's got 51% snaps. Jaylen Warren has 40%. This last game, Jaylen Warren outsnapped him. I mean, Najee was still drafted with the thought he'd be involved, and he's involved, but is it just pretty much a split at this point?
I mean, why would you have subjected yourself to any piece of this Arthur Smith offense? Especially at least last year with Bijan, you knew you had one guy who was a huge skill advantage. He still managed to give Algier a lot. Yeah, I'm not I would just get out of this offense right now. With Fields taking over, and even with Wilson to some extent, like you're not going to be getting any real targets. No, I mean, I just think, I mean, it's pretty crazy seeing that Najee Harris. I don't think I realized quite how much rushing volume he's had the last 3 years. He's been 4 yards a carry, but a lot of them. He's been over
Yeah, I mean,
250 all
he
3
gets a lot of
games.
work, and
But
he just works his way to fantasy. But
yeah, I just it just seems like a shit show of an offense. Like I'm not saying you should drop him. Let me see where I have him rest this. I have him like 20 RB 27. So it's like, yeah. I mean, if he's your second best running back, it's probably not the best. Hopefully, you have some guys that that'll move up out of your bench at some point. So his floor is not awful, I suppose, but yeah, not a fan of this. I wouldn't have. I think the ceiling is so low on his skill set and that offense, um, and throwing in a fields led offense where he's gonna steal a bunch of plays with their sacks or scrambles.
yeah,
No.
yeah, lot of splitting going on there in that situation. I mean, I think I have him probably in the mid 30s among running backs, and that feels.
Yeah.
I mean, that feels right. He's
Right.
going to get enough work to be, to maybe fall in the end zone, but not enough work to really put up a ton of yards in any given game. Zamir White, 22 carries, 68 yards, no touchdowns, 5 receptions, 16 yards, 38% snap to 63%, so 51% snap overall. Madison is at 41% snap overall, and then Abdullah was involved in week 2. Where are you at on Zamir White? Is he the RB1 in this group, or is it just, we talked about Madison last week. Is this going to be a split depending on a little bit of game script and a little bit of hot hand?
Yeah, I mean, it could be that. I mean, like, I'm trying to think. So the Madison, so he went from 60 to 22%, and that's partially because they won on week 2, so the gate, so it seems like that they're using. I don't have a feel on this one. I kind of see it as like, I did not believe he was an RB1. So I feel like I gave Madison more production in the preseason than a lot of others. And it was not because I believed in Madison. It was just like, I'm just not seeing like a year where Zamir White gets 250 carries and the snaps needed to do that. But yeah, and nothing. I wouldn't say anything's totally changed there until we see a week where Zamir White puts up the stats. I'm not worried. 63% snap, that's something. But until we see something where 100-yard rushing game, 120 yards rushing and receiving, I'm kind of seeing him as like a flex running back that's just fine.
Yeah, I mean, I would go with Najee over Zamir. Even splitting, Najee's still going to get a lot of carries. That's what they want to do there in that offense. But I don't really feel good about either of these running backs at this point. I also don't necessarily feel good about starting Javonte Williams at this point, who has 19 carries for 40 yards. 6 receptions, 48 is kind of saved 1 week for him at least. 58% snap. Jaleel McLaughlin has a 32% snap. And then Bo Nix leads the team with 60 rushing yards. This offense has not been good.
No, there is the potential that Sean Payton's due date has passed, but there's also the potential that this offense had been very running. His Payton offense has been very running back friendly, particularly in targets. I do think Jonathan Williams has some skill there. I think just maybe setting expectations that I do see the potential of Williams maybe being a guy who gets over 1,000 yards the rest of the way, but it's kind of like 600 rushing, 400 passing or receiving. I don't think he's gonna get much passing. That's like the out. I don't, and yeah, I haven't watched him to know if he's still gimpy or he's all the way back. But yeah, it's not looking good right now. For Sean Payton, I think it's even got a little reminiscent of maybe like the John Gruden Raider time, where it's like, oh, you definitely got paid.
Congratulations on that. But yeah, that's
and you're
may
not
not do a lot for everybody
right,
else.
and you're generally not. There's something that makes you not very a little bit annoying.
Yeah, this is another really bad offensive line as well. I mean, they can't get anything going on the offensive side, running the ball. I mean, I'd hold on to Javonte. I'm not cutting him, but
Right.
I'm not starting him unless I absolutely have to at this point. It
Right.
looks really bad.
Yeah.
He's still splitting and giving up work. Just I'm waiting.
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, like, but no, but the fact that he's playing 58 versus 32. That's what you want. You don't want Javonte Williams playing. I think it's just that like I guess if you could say give me 70% of snaps for 17 weeks and the running, like you take it, but it's just that I think maybe the concern with McLaughlin is which 30% is he getting? Is he get the 4-minute offense? Is he going to get third downs? I don't know. Yeah. I'm not worried there. I think it's just that it is certainly potential that offense is just not going to work this year. And yeah, we should remain very skeptical on rookie-led teams, and not a very good start that Bo Nix is going to just take off where Drew Brees was in his later career, and what Bo Nix was in Oregon in his 28th collegiate year.
Yeah, they really talked him up in the preseason, and that does not really come through into the regular season. The offense looks awful. I'll say new perspective because I thought he'd be good and kind of survive because they'd want to run the ball. I don't think so. I think it's a bad situation to be in, and I don't really like it anymore. Sam Laporta, 8 targets, 6 receptions, 58 yards.
I mean, we mentioned it, or I said it earlier. I think it's just you're not. Last year was basically they had nothing at WR2, WR3. When I say nothing, it's just like obviously Khalif Raymond and Josh Reynolds got some targets, but they got basically like replacement level target rates for those positions. And if you're going to have, Jamison Williams, if right now I'd say like, yeah, Amon-Ra St. Brown, you've got a situation where both wide receivers are getting lots of targets. The running backs are getting a fair share. There's just not enough to go around. There's no reason that team shouldn't be a well-balanced from rush pass between game script and just talent levels. And because that O-line is good. I believe the what I'd call that is Laporta looks like he might be getting kittled.
Yeah, just a little too useful to be only receiving.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very possible. All right, we're getting pretty long here, Rudy. Why don't we just give me the high hopes, new perspective, or say amen, and let's move through these last names here. Travis Kelce, 7 targets, 4 receptions, 39 yards. He says he's played like crap and he's going to play better, but do you believe him?
Yeah, but certainly not. I certainly don't feel good with him as TE1 anymore. Yeah, that feels like it's gonna maybe the end has come a bit. Um, right. So yeah, I'd say new perspective and just like resetting expectations that okay, he's a top 12 tight end.
Yeah, I would still put him at top 5, but he's not number 1.
You're starting him is basically like yeah, there's no question you're starting him
Yeah.
still. So, but where he
All right.
finishes there.
Mark Andrews, 7 targets, 6 receptions, 65 yards, no touchdowns. I mean, he's in the bottom of his own team in targets, receptions, and yards, pretty much. After week
Yeah.
1, where Likely did everything, Likely also disappointed in week 2. I mean, is this just going to be the passing offense of the Ravens?
I mean, I still think I think it's maybe like the Kelsey thing that the as long as Likely's healthy and I think Andrews is a good bet for top 12 tight end, but maybe not. It's maybe not top 5 anymore. There's just too much competition, and I'd say Likely is could be borderline top 12 tight end as well. Um, it just takes just feels like it hurts the ceiling. It takes a little off the ceiling, a little off the floor. Um, yeah, so that a new perspective until one of them gets hurt.
I agree. New perspective, moving down just a
If
little bit in the
not
rankings.
not rooting for it by any means.
Yeah.
Um, any more tight end grievances?
Dalton Kincaid, 6 targets, 5 receptions, 44 yards. He is tied for second in targets, receptions, and fourth in yards for the team. Just nobody seems to really get a lot of yards right now.
No, I mean that's just not a scary passing offense. Yeah, I mean I didn't. I can't say I don't like the concept of target vacuums and the feeling that someone's got to catch the ball. It sometimes what happens is if you don't have a bunch of good targets, a good wide receiver and tight ends, like you're just not as you're not as successful. It's that those uh, that those yards and efficiency just bleed out of the offense. That's kind of what it feels like. It's going to be a lot of hero ball, and it's worth remembering. It's like we went Chiefs won a Super Bowl, and yet Kelsey was like the only viable skill player for fantasy. Um, it's not crazy to think like Bills have like almost no one. Like Kincaid is a fine tight end, and Cook is a solid running back, and that's it. And that they could still be a good team and not deliver anything really fantasy worthy out of the 3 skill groups.
Yeah, it's very possible that we just don't get the production we thought. I think Dalton Kincaid is a good tight end. I just don't think he's not an elite tight end. And so without anybody there to take some of the
Yeah.
pressure off, like he's not going to produce at that high level like we thought. Let's move over to quarterbacks real quick. Got a couple names. I'm just gonna throw them both out at you. Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence, both have really struggled. What are your thoughts on these two quarterbacks?
I mean, yeah, I think we knew going in the Chargers have have questionable wide receiver talent, unproven, let's say. And it seems like a team with Harbaugh that we're not going to see the volume. I don't. I mean, I think you said he has 46 attempts in 2 weeks. That's real low. Um, I don't think Herbert's going to be anything special for fantasy this year. I like the talent, but that's not a good situation. With Lawrence, it's a better situation. I do. I think you've got at least an offense coordinator who's a little likes passing a bit more, or whatever. Peterson's the coach, but a de facto OC in my eyes. like slightly. I'm somehow talking myself into. I like Herbert's talent more. I think he's more likely to end up hit by end of career being a guy who gets all into the All Pro, a top 8 quarterback in the league. I really think Trevor Lawrence. Um, right now, I don't see him taking that step. It just I've lost the faith, but for whatever I could see him putting in a better fantasy season, even though he's a worse real life quarterback. It's got to get better than where they're at. I don't know how or why, um, but I think something will get better.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of what's going on with Herbert too is just the game script in the early games has been so favorable. As they played, the Raiders and then the Panthers, they were up
Yeah,
big in both games. Dobbins was running really well and had a couple big runs. So I think part of the very low passing volume has just been they haven't had to.
right.
But I also think this team, under Harbaugh, doesn't want to pass like Herbert has passed in the previous seasons. So I agree. I think it's a little different type of Justin Herbert than we've seen before. 67.4% completion rate. That's pretty much, I mean, that's what you want. So from a completions percentage, it's fine. It's just not the volume we're used to seeing. And that's a little bit around the league. I mean, the volume just hasn't been there from a lot of teams. And, I think just a lot of safe football being played on defense, just keeping everything in front everywhere across the league. Um, let's wrap up with asshole of the week, Rudy, and then we'll get out of here. You
Okay.
got anybody?
Oh man, no, I
I'll
don't.
go first, and I'll let you
You
think
go.
about it. Mine is Nick Sirianni. I mean, he had the game won, and I'm not an Eagles fan, so this is not anything for me. But like, he had the game won twice, and just in his push to be over aggressive, just lost the game. Like, you did it once, you had another chance to just do it right, and
It,
it's just
it was
it
so
just didn't
easy.
work out. I know Saquon should catch that ball, so I thought about putting him in this list too. But at the end of the day, like, just run the ball. Just what you got Saquon for was to run the ball. Just
And
turn
and,
around, give them the ball, go get
and
3 yards.
Saquon was and that drive, Saquon was running well. I mean,
Yeah,
I
I mean,
felt
he
like he
ran
was
well the whole game.
he was yeah. I mean, I felt like he was getting more yards than were blocked for on a couple plays. But yeah, that's just up. 3rd and 3. The thing is, there's no, you don't, you know, there's interesting analytics on. I won't go into, but basically that I've read. But yeah, it's a 4 down territory. There's no need to kick the field goal. Um, you know, make them drive 97 yards, and they're never going to drive 97 yards because if you did, they would just kick the field goal. That's part of the analytics that no one ever goes for the touchdown when they're down by 3. They take the field goal. You put down by 6, they go for it. Yeah, and I do find it hilarious that I feel like Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley are two of the most likable players in the league. Just they seem like really good guys. And obviously, I'm partial on Barkley, but I'm certainly not on Hurts. Given he went to like Oklahoma and Alabama, seems good, but it's all ruined in goodwill because Nick Sirianni is the worst. I hate that. He's so annoying when he's winning. Like you really just root against that guy. Um, I'll go. You know, feels like it's piling on because his coach called him out on it. But that Will Levis play was so bad. I mean, it didn't even make any sense. Um, so hopefully he learns from it. Um, but I mean, it's bad when that was kind of the reason he fell to where he did was this feeling like he's going to do some dumb stuff, and maybe in a way we're seeing. I don't know. But that's such a bad play that I'll give him that, but I feel bad on it. I'm not as cold blooded as you. I could just, but except with Nick Sirianni. So yeah, I think that was a good one because yeah, he just really gets under my skin. I think is that one clip of him when they were running up on the Giants and he's doing his nodding the head thing. It was like from a year or two ago on like a Sunday night or Monday night. And it was just like, dude, just fucking chill. Like no need to like, like, yeah, do that stuff in
We
the
know which team is
clubhouse.
better. It's okay.
Yeah, you have a monstrous talent that like you're beating up on like an Appalachian state or something. But
All right, Rudy, we've covered a lot here today. If you have specific questions about your lineups or players, come find us on Twitter. I'm at RazBeaton. Rudy is at Rudy Gamble. You can find us on youtube.com/Razzball Fantasy. Like, rate, review, subscribe wherever you listen to us or watch us. Until next week, good luck in your matchups, and we'll talk to you later. See you, Rudy.
later.